So friends, what does it mean for our nation that for the first time, a former president of the United States has been indicted for his crimes? Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, we now know that Donald Trump will have his first court appearance, his arraignment, on Tuesday. You know, friends, I teach criminal justice students at George Washington University. Each semester I teach 50+ students in a class called the Criminal Justice System Arrest Through Appeal. And it is my privilege, it is my honor to teach these young students, and frankly, they leave me optimistic for our nation's future. And I'll bet if you ask the students I've taught, and I've been teaching for years now, if you ask them this one question, I'll bet they would all give you the same answer. How does Professor Kirshner refer to the arraignment hearing? That is the first court hearing a defendant has in a criminal case. I'll bet they would all say the same thing. He calls it the first eyeball to eyeball between the judge and the defendant. And that's what the arraignment hearing is. It is the first eyeball to eyeball meeting between the judge and the defendant, and that is often the first time that for the defendant it becomes very real. Well, here's what we now know about Donald Trump's first eyeball to eyeball with the judge in New York. This from the Independent. Court officially confirms date and time for Trump arraignment. And the article begins, the date and time of the court hearing for the arraignment of former President Donald Trump have been confirmed by the court and will take place on Tuesday, April 4th at 2:15 p.m. Eastern Time. A Manhattan grand jury voted on Thursday to indict former President Donald Trump for falsifying business records in connection to a 2016 hush money payment to porn actress Stormy Daniels, for her to remain silent about a 2006 affair she claims to have had with Mr. Trump, an allegation he denies. It has been reported that Mr. Trump faces more than 30 criminal counts. So friends, in the days before the indictment was announced, I think we all had a sense that it was coming. So I sat down, I put pen to paper, and I tried to write down my thoughts about what it might mean for our nation to have the first former president of the United States indicted for his crimes. So I pre-wrote a piece in the days leading up to the indictment. I write for MSNBC Daily. I submitted it. It made its way through the editing process. Yes, my work typically needs lots and lots of editing, even though I was a journalism major undergrad. And then MSNBC Daily held it and was prepared to run it when and if Donald Trump was indicted. So once the announcement came out that Donald Trump had been indicted, within minutes, this piece went up on MSNBC's website. And what I'd like to do with your kind indulgence is just take a few minutes to read it to you, because this is what I think it means to see for the first time a former president of the United States who is actually being held accountable for his crimes, who has now been indicted and will stand trial for his crimes. Title, Why Trump's Indictment is Only the Beginning. And it begins, with the indictment of Donald Trump by a New York State grand jury, a legal barrier has been broken. A maiden legal voyage has set sail. The most important takeaway is this: a president of the United States will never again rest comfortably in the belief that he or she can commit crimes with impunity. This is an important development for our republic. Our nation has long suffered from the absence of accountability for presidential crimes. Most notably, President Gerald Ford decided that former President Richard Nixon should not be held accountable for his crimes in office. Ford claimed his decision was for the good of the country, to help the country heal. This reasoning always struck me, as a career prosecutor, as a cruel joke. In 30 years, I never once told a crime victim that I was going to help them heal by declining to prosecute their perpetrator. Announcing that you are declining to prosecute crime in the name of healing is a perversion of justice. Of course, an indictment is only the first step toward accountability. Enormous challenges lie ahead. Trump's legal team undoubtedly will wage a scorched earth defense, and outside the court of law, we can expect Trump loyalists to wage battles in the court of public opinion, most likely deploying both facts and alternative facts. America cannot yet breathe easy, as justice is still well off on the horizon. Another likely consequence of this precedent-setting indictment is that it increases the odds that additional indictments will follow. I have long maintained that no prosecutor wants to be the first to charge a former president of the United States. As we are seeing now, the first indictment attracts the white-hot glare of media attention from around the world. And some of that attention can be downright dangerous. We cannot ignore that Trump and many of his associates have unleashed a level of hate and violence once thought impossible, or at least unacceptable, in a civilized society. With entreaties to his supporters, such as, "Fight like hell or you won't have a country anymore," Trump has made violence in the quest for power not just acceptable, but fashionable. One only need look to the reporting by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution about how, on the day former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn testified before the Georgia State Grand Jury investigating Trump's election crimes, law enforcement authorities brought in a bomb-sniffing dog, and the Fulton County Courthouse was guarded by sheriffs, deputies, and marshals carrying automatic weapons. The prospect of violence coming to jurisdictions and to prosecution teams who pursue criminal charges against Trump cannot be ignored. Now, prosecutors are not monolithic, but we do tend to be a fairly competitive bunch. I have seen a phenomenon that becomes relevant here when defendants commit crimes in multiple jurisdictions. Once prosecutors in one jurisdiction bring charges, prosecutors in other involved jurisdictions will often feel a greater sense of urgency to indict the same defendant to address the crimes committed in their jurisdictional backyards. This is not only human nature. Prosecutors also have constituents to whom they are responsible. This is most directly at play for district attorneys who face the prospect of running for re-election. Federal prosecutors are not elected, but in a very real sense, they represent the interests of the American people in criminal prosecutions. Based on public reporting alone, prosecutors in other jurisdictions, Fulton County, Georgia, and the federal inquiries under Special Prosecutor Jack Smith, have ample evidence to charge Trump. Recall, for example, that a federal judge in California, David Carter, ruled there was enough evidence to conclude that Trump and lawyer John Eastman committed 2 federal felonies in trying to challenge the 2020 election results, obstructing an official congressional proceeding, and conspiracy to defraud the United States. The New York indictment will ratchet up the pressure on federal prosecutors and prosecutors in Georgia, including Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, to hold Trump accountable for the crimes he seems to have committed in their jurisdictions. An indictment is never a celebratory affair. It is simply a necessary step on the road to justice. But the indictment of a former president of the United States will send a necessary message, a powerful message, indeed, a potentially democracy-saving message. Gone are the days when presidents are given carte blanche to commit crimes with impunity. This historic development is a move toward fulfilling the words of what had begun to feel like a hollow promise, that no man is above the law. Today's indictment prods that mantra into wakefulness and provides some modicum of hope for a resurgence of accountability for the crimes of a former president. And having some hope, some realistic hope that accountability will come for Donald Trump, like justice, matters. Friends, thank you for indulging me those few minutes to try to explain as best I'm able what I think it means that a former president of the United States will be held accountable for his crimes. He has been indicted. He will be tried. So we are now moving from the investigative phase of this hellscape that Donald Trump has created for all of us to what will now become the Trump trials. And we're here for all of it. Friends, as always, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again soon.